This video will be a tutorial on how to solve your Rubik's clock using what I call the optimized Pochmann method, which is a method that I came up with and started using in competition a couple years ago. And I decided to share it mainly because I believe it has a lot of potential, and I would love to see people that are a lot more dedicated to practice this event than myself use it, and hopefully see the true time limits they can reach. So back in 2019, when I was averaging around 11 or 12 seconds on this puzzle, I came up with this boosted Pochmann method, hoping to achieve good averages without having to turn as fast or practice as much as other people were averaging easily sub 10. And pretty quickly, I was able to pull sub 10 averages consistently, and then I went on to sub 9, sub 8, all the way down to sub 7 averages officially. And interestingly, during this whole period of time, my practice volume never increased, which means I'm still just picking up my clock every now and then and do not more than 100 solves per month. Honestly, I mostly practice on competition days, which clearly is not the best thing to do, but this is to show that optimized Pochmann is probably the ideal method for you if you don't want to invest too much time on clock, but still want to achieve decent results in competition. So first I'm going to talk about the different advantages of using OP compared to a standard cross-flip cross-corners method. Then I'm going to do an overview of the different steps of the method, followed by walkthrough solves. Finally, I'm going to discuss how to deal with lucky cases. And before we start, I just wanted to say that this video is not intended for people who don't know how to solve a clock, or at least understand the mechanisms of the puzzle. So if you've never touched the clock before, I highly suggest you watch a tutorial and come back to this video afterwards. Optimized Pochmann has three main advantages compared to any standard cross-flip cross-corners method. First advantage is that while you're solving your cross on the front side, you're also going to make part of the cross on the back side simultaneously, which cuts down the number of steps after the flip. So as you can see with this scramble, I have no edge clocks that are aligned with the center on this side, and it's also the case on this side. But after performing the very first step of the method, which of course I'm going to explain in detail in the next part of the video, like this. Now, as you can see, I have part of my cross that is done on the front and also at the back. Second advantage is that the pin order gives you the opportunity to have what I call a pin skip every solve, which means you will not have to change the pin's position after aligning at 12 and performing the X2 flip, and you can directly start turning a gear, which will increase the fluidity of your solve. So when solving this scramble, as you can see, when I'm done with my cross, I have a pin position that allows me to make the cross point to 12, flip, and without touching the pins, directly start building the rest of the second cross by aligning those two with a third one, like this. Third advantage is that, apart from the very first pin position in your solve, the pin order of this method makes you turn only upper gears. So you don't have to use, I don't know, your thumbs, ring fingers, or pinkies to turn the bottom gears. And since you're going to use mostly your index fingers, this makes your turning more precise with less practice. So again, with the same scramble, as you can see, when I perform the very first step, like this, I turned this bottom gear, but then the rest of my solve is going to consist of only upper gear turns. And it goes like this. And the clock is solved. Now let's go ahead and go through the steps of the method. So if you want to follow along, here's the scramble. And for simplicity, I'm just going to solve the scramble, keeping the orientation I have after I'm done scrambling. So I'm going to stay like this, with white being the front and black being the back. So the very first step is to put both upper pins facing you in the in position, while the other two pins are going to be out. Then you're going to want to align the center clock with the upper edge clock, and at the same time align the clocks that are in the equivalent position at the back after you perform the X2 flip. So in this case, it's going to be these two. To do this, you're going to want to use your right thumb on the right bottom gear to make the alignment on the front face. And as you can see, it will only turn the center clock, not turning the upper edge clock. And at the same time, you're going to want to use your left index finger to make the alignment at the back. And as you can see, it's going to have a similar effect where it turns only the center clock without turning the edge clock. So now the alignment on the front face is easy since you can see both clocks. But on the opposite side, during inspection, you're going to want to calculate how many hours apart are the two clocks. So for example, here they're 2 hours apart, meaning I'm going to have to perform a 2-hour turn in this direction with my index finger to align the two clocks. And when the front is facing you, to help you do exactly a 2-hour turn, not more, not less, while solving, what you can do is look at this corner over here, and looking at the motion of my finger, that means this corner clock is going to do a 2-hour rotation clockwise. So at the end of my first step, this corner is going to point to 1, 2, so at 11 o'clock. So now I'm taking position with my right thumb here, that is going to perform a 1-hour rotation clockwise, and with my left index finger here, which is going to do a 2-hour rotation clockwise. And I do them simultaneously, which goes like this. So now as you can see, those two are aligned, and if we look at the back, those two are also aligned. And we're done with the hardest part of the method. Now, the rest is very similar to any standard method. So you're going to put those two pins in, this one out. You're going to align those two with a third one, like this one in, this one out. We're going to align those with this one. Now, this one out. We're going to finish across, then out, and we're going to align to 12. Now we do the X2 flip, and we're going to align those two. This one, in, out, align those with this one, out, finish across. And then for the corners, I like to start here and just go clockwise. So I'm going to put this pin out, and I'm just going to align my cross with this corner. Then in, out, I'm going to align the cross and the corner with the second corner, like this. Then in, out, I'm going to align with this one. In, out, I'm going to align all the clocks, and then all pins out, and just going to point to 12, and we're done. Here's an additional walkthrough solve. Again, if you want to follow along, here's the scramble, and here we have a random scramble without any evident lucky case. And of course, once you get comfortable with the method, you can plan your solve even further than that. But for now, what you can do during inspection is first figure out the clock's orientation during your solve, and then plan your first step that involves the two simultaneous rotations. To decide the orientation of the clock during your solve, what I like to do is to look at all edge clocks on both sides and see which ones are the closest to the center clock. So for example, here I have two clocks that are only 1 hour from the center, and on the other side I also have two edge clocks 1 hour from the center. Now, since the first step is the hardest to execute, it's best to make your two simultaneous rotations as short as possible, especially the rotation for the back side. So you're going to want to position any edge closest to the center at the back so that it becomes the upper edge after the X2 flip. And now in this case, we have plenty of equivalent options that imply a 1 hour rotation at the back. And to decide which one is best, you're going to look at the front face and figure out in which case you have the smallest rotation to do with your thumb. So I have a clock here with all our 4 options to position at the back. And if we look at option number 1, I put the edge at the back. And as you can see, I'm going to have to do a 3-hour rotation with my thumb. If I put option number 2 now at the back, I'm going to have to do a 1-hour rotation. If I put option number 3 at the back, again, I'm going to have to do a 1-hour rotation. And if I put option number 4 at the back, I'm going to have to do a 3-hour rotation with my thumb. So here our best options are either number 2 or number 3 with 2 1-hour rotations to perform simultaneously. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose option number 2. So back to my original clock, here is the edge that I'm going to want to position at the back. like this. Now, looking at the front, as I said, I see that my right thumb is going to have to do a 1 hour rotation clockwise. And for my left index finger, looking at the back, I see that I'm going to have to do a 1 hour rotation in this direction. So following the motion of my finger, that means that at the end of the first step, this corner here is going to end up pointing at 2 o'clock. So now that we have all this information, we're ready to start solving. So we pick up the clock and we put those 2 pins in, those 2 out, right thumb, left index finger, and we do the rotations we plan in inspection simultaneously. This, those 2 in, this one out, and we're going to match those 2 with this one. In, out. We're going to match those with this one. Out. We're going to finish the cross. Out, point 12. Flip. Match those 2 with this one. In, out. Match those with this one. Out. Finish the cross. Out. Align with the first corner. In, out, second corner, in, out, third corner, in, out, last corner, and with all pins out, align to 12, and we're done. For lucky cases, I'm going to discuss the 2 most common cases you're going to encounter in your solves and show you how to position your clock to take full advantage of them and get a skip without modifying the pin order that you just learned. And note that I often choose different orientations than the ones I'm about to show for those cases, but since this is a tutorial on the basics of the method, I'm not going to cover all the modifications of the pin order you can do to optimize your solutions. The first type of lucky case is when you have 2 adjacent edge clocks pointing in the same direction. So if we look at this case, there's only one way to position those edge clocks to skip a step without really modifying the pin order. And it's going to be like this, putting them at the bottom left of the back face. So now if I solve this case, I'm going to do it the normal way. Flip. Now as you can see, when I'm going to align those 2 with a third one, this one is also going to match them. So now instead of just putting this pin in and this one out, you can put both pins on the left out, finish your cross, and now normally the next step would have been to put this pin out in order to finish the cross, but since we skipped a step, we still put it out and we can directly start aligning the corners. Second type of lucky case is when you have an edge clock pointing in the same direction as the center. So here there are 2 ways you can position the edge clock, either at the back on the right side or on the front face on the left. For example, in this case, if I put it at the right back, I solve it the standard way until the flip. And now, as you can see, I have not just 2 but 3 clocks already pointing in the same direction. So I'm going to align them with this one. And skipping a step, we can directly put both upper pins out and complete our cross, and then the corners. In this case, if I choose to position the lucky case front left, as you can see, after I'm done with the very first step, I am going to have 3 clocks instead of 2 pointing in the same direction. So we follow the pin order and put these 2 in, this one out, and align those with this one. and then directly put both upper pins out, since we skipped a step, and finish the rest of our solve normally.